You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name and politics is our game, and we will be doing politics this evening because we have as our guest State Representative Lou Lang. He's a Democrat from Skokie. He's been in the House more than 21 years. So he's the House, you're the floor leader, right?
Democratic floor leader. Right.
He's an assistant majority leader. He represents a good portion of the southern part of Skokie, all of Lincolnwood, part of Morton Grove, most of the 50th Ward, that's Alderman Bernie Stone's, part of the 49th, which is Joe Moore. So he's got a good sense of Chicago and the areas just out of Chicago. But since he's the guy who reads all the legislation and is accountable to answer any questions, right?
That's my job.
In the State House. So he, as a part of that job, you probably get to know people all across the state of Illinois, all the representatives. So you know Illinois, right?
I do. I've traveled to Illinois extensively. I've been in virtually every county of our state, meeting with all sorts of officials.
So what's the big news? Who's going to replace Barack Obama as the U.S. Senator, the junior U.S. Senator from the state of Illinois?
Well, if I
know everything, you must know that. Just, you know, and you're very close. You have a warm relationship with Governor Rod Blagojevich, who will make the appointment, right?
Well, I think people who know me know that you're a little tongue-in-cheek there. The governor and I don't get along too well because I go around the state telling the truth about him.
You speak truth to power, as Alderman Brookins would say?
I just speak truth. If power listens, they listen. If not, not. I don't think anybody really knows who the governor will appoint, but I do think he's got one basic premise, and that is he will appoint whoever is good for the governor. He won't necessarily appoint who's good for Illinois, who's good for the citizens of our state, although they might accidentally coincide. The truth is, though, the governor will choose whoever the governor thinks will help the governor.
Well, as we're taping this on November 17th, so when you see this, which will be the week of, actually we're taping on November 16th, you'll be seeing it the week of November 17th. By that time, you actually may learn. It could be any day, because Barack Obama submitted his resignation, I think today, Sunday the 16th.
As of today, that's correct.
So the governor could move at any point, tomorrow, a week, he said by the first of the year, to make that appointment. So you may know, and when you say, Representative Lang, what's good for Rod Blagojevich, well, what's good for Rod Blagojevich would be to narrow the field and help him get reelected in 2010 as governor, because everybody knows he's going to run, right?
Well, I think there's a speculation that he would like to run again, despite the fact that he's got the lowest approval ratings in the history of America. The fact is, though, that I don't think he's going to choose somebody to get that person out of the way.
He wouldn't do that.
In other words, I don't think he's going to choose Lisa Madigan, who could be an opponent. I don't think he's going to choose Alexi Giannoulias, who could be an opponent. I don't think he's going to choose Lou Lang, who could potentially be an opponent.
You ran once before, you could do it again?
It's possible, but I think
Dan Hines, state comptroller, he could be an opponent.
And I don't think he's going to choose Dan Hines. Who I think he's going to choose is someone that helps him solidify whatever he thinks is his remaining base. Here's a governor with a 13% voter approval rating, and I don't even know who those 13% are. I can't find anybody who still supports the guy. But I do think that as of this moment, he thinks he wants to run for re-election.
His base, in large part, not large part, but a significant part, the African-American community. Emil Jones, his close ally for the last 6 years in legislative matters, an African-American mentor for a quarter of a century of Barack Obama. Emil Jones is retiring as Senate President. What could be better? Please Barack Obama, please Rod Blagojevich, please Emil Jones, all around a win-win-win situation, right?
It wouldn't surprise me if President Jones becomes the governor's nominee to be the next United States Senator. Senator Jones is a good legislator. I haven't always agreed with him as Senate President, nor have I agreed with the fact that he's been basically attached at the hip with the governor for the last 6 years, doing the governor's bidding. I haven't liked that very much. But the fact is that while the governor's support is much smaller than it was even in the African American community, that remains the area where his numbers are at least a little higher. And it would seem to me that that's one direction he could go. Another direction would be, as we've read in the papers, Tammy Duckworth. Tammy Duckworth ran for Congress 2 years ago and barely lost. She's run the Veterans Affairs Agency for the state of Illinois.
With the support, we should say, of Dick Durbin, the senior senator from the state of Illinois, with the support of Rahm Emanuel, now chief of staff in the Obama administration, with the support of David Axelrod, now the senior strategist in the Obama administration. So she's got a lot of heavy hitters over there, but what does it do for Rod Blagojevich to have Tammy Duckworth there?
It would be a safe choice for him. And
because Brock likes it, and Axelrod likes it, and Emanuel likes it.
That's correct.
He makes nice with those guys. And what do they do for him, though?
Well, what they do is maybe stay out of the next gubernatorial election. So the governor hasn't had very good relationship with President-elect Obama. He hasn't had a very good relationship with Senator Durbin. And so that puts Tammy Duckworth in play. A person.
Do they support him when you say they stay out? Does Obama and Axelrod and Emanuel, do they come out and support Rod Blagojevich for governor in 2010 because he picked one of theirs?
No, I don't
Tammy
think
Duckworth?
so. I don't think it would make any sense for a new president of the United States to get involved in the kind of controversy that it takes to unseat a sitting governor of your own party in your own home state. I just don't think they're
How about
going to get
this? They
involved.
do a nice thing, no deal, but you know, this guy, Patrick Fitzgerald, he's been sort of being an aggressive as a U.S. attorney, investigating all of this corruption everybody knows involved around Rod Blagojevich. They suspect his wife, Patty Blagojevich. Wouldn't it be nice for them to find another home for Patrick Fitzgerald? Them being Barack Obama, Rahm Emanuel, David Axelrod. I'm not suggesting anything improper.
If you're suggesting that the governor of our state might go to the person who's investigating the governor of our state and say, tell you what, I think I'll send you off to Washington. I'll make you our next United States Senator. I don't think that will happen. But if it were to happen, Mr. Fitzgerald is honest and honorable enough that if he had a case already made, an indictable case against the governor, after he accepted the U.S. Senate appointment, he would probably go ahead with the indictment.
Well, but what if he wasn't ready yet, and what if he wasn't made a senator, but the president, who really has of course, the power to either keep Fitzgerald there or not, he makes the appointment of 100+ U.S. attorneys around the country, as you know.
Yes.
And I think it's unprecedented. I don't know, and you may know better, you're a practicing lawyer for 30 years, Lou, but I think it's unprecedented for a president to keep somebody in a third term. That would be the third term of Patrick Fitzgerald as U.S. Attorney. Is it unprecedented? And if so, it'd be easy for him to say, I'm not going to reappoint him.
There's no question that on January 20th, all 100+ U.S. attorneys will tender their resignations. Right. That's what happens. It's standard. It's typical.
So it'd be easy for Barack Obama to accept.
But some will get reappointed, and I would predict for you that Mr. Fitzgerald will continue to have a place within the administration, whether it be on a higher level than he is today, or whether he is at the same level, or whether he's asked to join the Justice Department in some way. Mr. Fitzgerald has done an outstanding job. Everyone in politics doesn't really like the outstanding job he's done, but that is his job, and I think he's done it well.
And if Fitzgerald is replaced, does the pace of investigations of the Democratic state machine, starting with the mayor and the people around him and Zorich and all that patronage stuff, Tony Reskow, mayor connections, governor connections, does that all continue, and also the investigations around around Governor Rod Blagojevich, does that continue as aggressively even if Patrick Fitzgerald is removed?
I would submit that it will continue, but I would also submit that since there's a possibility that Mr. Fitzgerald will not be reappointed as our U.S. Attorney for our area, and since he'll be tendering his resignation on the 20th of January, I think whatever cases he has that have reached the level where he's got a significant core of evidence to proceed with an indictment, he will. And so you might see a flurry of indictments that are very significant over the next 2 months.
So will Rod Blagojevich be indicted before January 20th?
I have no way of knowing if the governor is going to be indicted
but
before or after January 20th.
But you just said if there are things going on, there'll probably be an effort to get things done,
right.
Indictments issued by the 20th. Just saying, your best guess.
My best guess is that if Mr. Fitzgerald has a case against the governor, we will see it before the 20th of January.
But you don't know, you're not going to speculate on whether he's got a case against your pal, Rod Blagojevich.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't speculate, but second of all, Rod Blagojevich and I are not pals.
You're arch enemies. I'm being facetious. You are arch enemies. You guys don't like each other.
Look, I wouldn't say we're arch enemies, and I think our problems have nothing to do with our own personal relationship. If the governor walked in here now and said, let's go to dinner, I would go. And then immediately after, I would tell everybody what he told me.
But you think he's done a terrible job as governor for the last 6 years?
I think he has been a terrible governor, and I helped elect him twice. He's a governor of my party.
You supported him?
We hadn't had it. Yes, of course I did.
Did you support him in the primary back in 2002?
We hadn't had a Democratic governor in 30 years, and in the primary of 2002, first I was a candidate, and when I withdrew, I supported Paul Vallis. That has nothing whatsoever to do with the problems I'm having with Rod Blagojevich.
In 2006, did you support Eisendrath in that primary?
I did not. I supported Governor Blagojevich because Mr. Eisendrath, in my opinion, had no chance of beating Rod Blagojevich in the primary.
But the truth is, as you said, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being terrible, 10 being great, you'd give this governor about a 0 rating for governor?
I think that there are some areas I might give him more than a 0, but
in general?
In general, I would say that this is a governor that should not be reelected.
What, a 1 or a 2? What do you give him?
Well, it's a low number. So whether it's a 0 or a 1 or a 2, we should not support him for reelection.
Okay, we'll finish off, just finishing off this U.S. Senate thing. So we talked about Duckworth, we talked about Emil Jones. Jesse Jackson Jr. is out there campaigning hard for the position.
Certainly.
Taking polls showing he's favored and all that. People say there's bad blood between the governor and Jesse and he won't get it. Jesse Jr., what do you say?
Well, that may be the case. I don't know about their personal relationship. I think Congressman Jackson has been outstanding, not only for his district, but for the state of Illinois. He's a great communicator, a terrific public figure. I have a very good relationship with him myself.
You'd like to see him appointed. Would you say he'd be a good appointment for the
I think he'd be a good appointment, but there are other good appointments. I don't want anyone to think that he's my candidate. Well, my own congressperson, Jan Schakowsky, would be an outstanding appointment for the United States Senate. I think she ought to be considered.
She's not African American, is that a disadvantage?
No, she is not.
Is that a disadvantage?
I think if the governor is going to make his decision based on politics, it probably will be a disadvantage. If he's going to base it on quality, if he's going to base it on who would be the best person for the state of Illinois, then Congressman Jackson, Congressman Gutierrez, Congressman Davis, Congresswoman Schakowsky. We have quite a few people who have been excellent public servants who would fit the role very well.
Jan close, Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, is she close with Rod Blagojevich? It seems like she is.
I'm hearing they are, but I'm not personally familiar with their relationship.
So when she had her first, when he had perhaps his first and only debate with Judy Bart-Topinka, Dick Hayes, one of his last debates he moderated when they were running for when he was running for governor in 2006. I think this was in May. I was there, and so was Jan Schakowsky. I was interested because there weren't a lot of politicians. She's a politician coming there. Blagojevich had a press conference after Jan was talking to Rod before, maybe after that press conference. Does that signify to you that she's kind of close?
Not necessarily, but let's.
She just was in the neighborhood or something?
I go to debates, and
right,
I don't necessarily
you didn't go to see a little debate that was going on in a TV station. Where
I have done that.
There was no audience.
There
was no audience for this. It was
well,
just
that might tell a different story.
Yeah,
she could have a very close relationship with the governor, and it might have nothing whatsoever to do with the decision he is going to make. Because as I told you, I believe he will make a choice that's good for Rod Blagojevich.
Last thing, Luis Gutierrez. His name is mentioned a lot. You think he may be chosen, and how would you feel?
And I should have mentioned his name as well, and I think he's also been outstanding for his district, and it might fit the governor's view that it should be a minority. And some people believe that this should remain a minority seat simply because Barack Obama had been elected to it.
Do you subscribe to that view?
I do not. I think we should find the best person who's a United States candidate for United States Senator, someone who could re-elect in 2 years, and if that person is African American, Hispanic, or Asian, that would be fine.
No racial litmus test.
I do not think there should be one.
That's actually what Senator Dick Durbin, the senior senator, said when I asked him if it was important that it be an African American replacement. He said no litmus test.
I don't think there should be a litmus test put on any politician for anything. I have supported candidates who don't agree with me on particular issues, for instance. I've supported candidates who are not from the part of the state that I would prefer on the statewide elections. And so I don't think we should put any litmus test on any candidate. We should get people who would be outstanding public servants, and all of the names we've mentioned have been.
All right, so what's hot in Springfield now? People have been talking about a capital plan for a long time. Is that going to get done? You're in the veto session. It doesn't get done there, right?
It could have, but it's not going to now. I think the finalized capital bill will not take place until after the new session starts in January, and we have a new Senate president. As you know, as you mentioned briefly, Senator Jones has been the president of the Senate. He's retiring from the Illinois Senate. There will be a new Senate president chosen. And your next question will be, well, who do I think that should be? And my answer is, I don't really care, so long as the person that is chosen understands the Senate's role under the Constitution, which is that the House and the Senate remain co-equal but separate branches of government from the governor's office. Senator Jones has been too close to the
John
governor.
Colton, you know, from Chicago.
Of course I know John
you know
very
him
well.
He's
Right.
upstate. Would you favor him over James Claiborne because he's from downstate?
I don't have a preference in the Senate
Jeff Schoenberg,
race.
you'd know Jeff well.
I
He's
know
mentioned as a
Jeff well.
compromise candidate. Do you think he's got a shot?
Yes, but here's the problem.
Don Harmon, does he have a shot?
Do I get to answer one of your questions?
Just tell me, go back in a second. But
All
you
of
said
these
yes.
people have
You
a
said
shot.
Okay. Harmon,
There isn't a single one
All
of the
36 state
36
senators?
state senators
They have a
who
shot?
don't have a shot. And the reason is because in the end, today, no one has 30 votes. It takes 30 votes to elect a Senate
But
president.
does it take just a majority? If they all say they're not going to let the Republicans get involved here, there are 37 Democratic state senators. It just take really a majority of that, 18.
No, that's not the case. You have to go to the floor and get 30 votes.
I know eventually, but in other words, if you got 18 in the Democratic caucus, if you got 19, would that do it? Because the others say when you go to the floor, we'll support.
It's possible that if somebody got to more than half of the caucus, which would be 19, that others would say, okay, you've gotten to the critical mass you need, and now I will support you. These might be.
But they might not.
Well, no, they might not. And somebody could be stuck on 19, 20, or even 25 for a very long time. And what could happen is they will eventually say, well, who can we stand? Who don't we hate? Because there's a lot of people who don't like this person for one reason or this person for another reason.
That's when they go to a Schoenberg or to a Harmon or
a Silverstein or a Link or any number of people.
Hendon.
Well, I
Hollywood
don't
Hendon.
think I don't think it'll be Ricky Hendon.
All right. Okay. So look, if it is Cullerton, you know him well. Come January, he's spoken, I think, about a tax increase, hasn't he? I think on this show, he
Many
seems to
people
favor
have
an income
spoken
tax
about
increase.
the need for an income tax
Is that going to
increase.
happen? Let's assume, hypothetically, Cullerton is now the Senate president. Of course, Speaker Mike Madigan is still the Speaker of the House. Tom Cross, we'll assume, is still the minority Republican leader, the Republican leader in the House. And we don't know. Either Radonio or Dillard will be leading
Or
the
a
Senate.
compromise candidate.
Or some. Okay. That's this January of 2009. People are saying, hey, Hines is saying we've got, what, a $5 billion backlog in bills that are unpaid.
Yes, we do.
And what do you think? Cullerton steps up with Speaker Mike and says, let's push through an income tax increase.
Well, I think it's possible that people will propose an income tax increase this year.
Is it a good idea?
I don't know that yet because there are things I think we need to consider before we do that. We need to consider every possible source of revenue, including gaming. We need to consider every possible avenue for reducing budgetary expenditures, which would include a proposal I'm going to make this year, something called zero-based budgeting. For those that don't know what that is, today in the state of Illinois, we tend to do a budget by taking last year's budget and accepting it as the Holy Grail and saying, okay, what can we add or where should we shave? My approach would be that every item in every budget should stand and fall on its own, dollar by dollar by dollar.
So start with
every
zero
year.
and then ask, should this program or agency or whatever be funded? Start with zero and make the decision. Don't start with last year's funding.
Down to the last paperclip.
You
That's
and
what
Ron
I
Gutierrez.
think.
Ron
people-
Gutierrez, you know, ran in the Republican primary for governor, didn't
Yes.
win. Just about a month ago on this show, he's thinking of running again. I don't know if he will, but he spoke about zero-based budgeting. So
think-
maybe we're looking at the ticket of Lang, Gitwitz, Gitwitz, Lang?
That isn't going to happen for any number of reasons, but the bottom line here is that that probably would not create enough dollars to avoid the need to find new revenue. However, I think the people of the state of Illinois have a right to know that we're not wasting or squandering any of their money before we go to them and say we need more money.
What about gaming? If you got your, you know, some people have say been pushing gaming for so many years.
I have.
Some of your critics say, when are you going to give up on that?
I'm not.
You're not?
No.
And now you've had the 10th casino bid, and there have been 3 bids came in. They're kind of low, right?
Well, they're low, but they're not
The
low.
Rosemont was the highest, and was
So-
it $400 million?
465, I think.
What are the next two? They're really spread apart.
much
and
lower. Much lower. I
What
can't
were the
remember the
Displains
numbers.
is one, and what's the third one for?
The other one was for Waukegan.
Waukegan.
And so,
So it's easy. It's a no-brainer. You take the high bid and put it in Rosemont, right?
absolutely not.
Not.
Now, it may end up in Rosemont, and Rosemont may end up being the best bid, but this isn't about the highest bid.
It's the gaming board that decides. Right?
Yeah, it's correct. It's about the best bid for the state of Illinois, not just the down payment, which is what the bid really is, but what is the best shot in the arm for the state in terms of economic development?
Quick,
And that
quick.
could
We don't have a lot of time. What is the best bid?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I was disappointed that one of the remaining bids isn't one from the south suburbs. Thousands of people leave Illinois every day and gamble in Indiana. We need to find a way to stop them from doing
Did
that.
the gaming board decide that? Was there a bid and it wasn't selected?
There were 3 bids from the south suburbs.
And none of them were accepted.
That's correct.
Do you think it was because the amount was too low, or why?
No, I don't think so. I think they made a decision based on what they felt was economic development, but I think they're missing an important point, which is the south suburbs really need new economic development, and B, we got to keep people,
But if the
Illinois
gaming
people
board
from
said-
spending their money in Indiana.
Excuse me. The gaming board said no. They're out of it. No, it's going to be one of these 3, right?
That's correct.
And when will that be decided?
They hope to, by the end of the year, to award this
All right.
license.
So if it happens, and say it is Rosemont, and it is a kick-in of, do they get that $465 million up front?
I believe so.
So is that enough? That with your zero-based budgeting to avoid an income tax increase?
No, I don't think so, and I think people in the state...
So what else you got to do?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to figure out what we want to do with gaming. Do we want to add new licenses? Remember, the 10th license that they're bidding on is an available open license under the law we passed many years ago. I would propose new licenses. I would propose slot machines at the racetracks. After all, they're gambling at racetracks anyway.
Racinos, right?
Correct. And some would say, that's fine, let's do all those things, but let's put the money aside for a capital program. And I've been there, but I've also been at a place that says, well, if we could pay for capital some other place, we could use these gaming dollars, which could be as much as $1.5 billion or $2 billion a year, to add to the general revenue fund of the state of Illinois.
Have you agreed now with the General Assembly to lease the lottery? You have, haven't you?
We passed a bill in the House to lease the lottery.
Has it
Now there
passed in the
seems
Senate?
to be, well, the Senate had passed a different version.
So what happens?
We'll see if the Senate takes up our version, but now there seems to be a federal Justice Department opinion saying we can't do what we've done, and that other states can't do what they've proposed to do with the sale and the lease of their lotteries either, that the state must retain some control. And of course, if the state retains control, will a bidder still want to pay $10 billion?
So it's up in the air.
It is up in the air.
Everything's up in the air.
That's what the
How about
state of
this?
Illinois is all about.
Well, look, you've heard of the Illinois Policy Institute, right?
I have.
You know, they got a booklet out called the Piglet Book, right?
The Piglet Book.
For
I've read it.
porkers, pig. You've read it. What do you think? Do they have a point?
I think that you can make the point that there are some wasteful expenditures coming out of Springfield, and some wasteful expenditures which would be specific projects and specific legislators' districts. However, I would tell you that in my 21 years in Springfield, this is at the lowest level ever, and that most projects, certainly not all, most projects proposed by legislators pass what I call the smell test. I have proposed,
But let me-
along with a
excuse me.
legislator from downstate, that we have a committee to make sure that every project passes the smell test.
But it hasn't happened.
Not yet, but it might.
One of the things there, it sounds like a relatively small, relative to a $60 billion budget, but they talk about $4 million for the Ford Tech Training Center in Chicago Heights, $1 million for the Illinois Film House in Chicago, $920,000 for the Chicago Aerospace Education Initiative. Some of these things may sound good, but I think their point is a lot of this stuff really doesn't go through an agency review. It doesn't sound like the core mission of Illinois to have a film office. You know, shouldn't we be focusing on public safety and making sure that is done right, making sure if we're in healthcare that is done right, not get into this little projects for here and there for Chicago State, for things maybe for cancer research. It sounds good, but the point is the label sounds good, but I think their point is it's not a well thought through program. Nobody knows really what's going on, and you start adding up 4 million, 5 million, as what is it? Dirksen used to say, $1 billion here and $1 billion there, and before you know it, you're talking real money, right?
This is why I proposed this committee to take a look at these things. So I would submit to you that while some people call this pork, and while some people on the federal level call it, I forget the name, but it was an issue during the presidential earmarks. Right. The real issue here is what are they for? So there are also earmarks or member projects in the state budget that would create water treatment facilities in communities that can't afford them. Would anybody call that unnecessary, wasteful spending? And so I think each of these needs to rise and fall on their own. If there's an economic development reason behind it, maybe we should consider it. For instance, the film office creates tourism, creates new business in the state of Illinois. It's been proven, Jeff.
Yeah.
And so you could probably pick out some
proven
projects.
Is a strong word.
You can probably pick out some projects in our state budget that are wasteful.
How about a bipartisan committee to go through the Illinois Piglet book from the Illinois Policy Institute, bipartisan, Democrat and Republican, project by project, and respond and let them know, is there $700 million, $1 billion?
No, I don't think the General Assembly needs to respond to every critic for every line item, but I do think we should have a committee, that bipartisan committee, both chambers, both houses, both parties, to look at projects before they're approved, which is why I've suggested to you that I proposed exactly that.
We're going to continue to speak as the credits roll, but I very much want to thank our guest, State Representative Lou Lang, who's come here frequently. We really thank you for doing that.
It's a pleasure. I enjoy it.
All right. You'll
Thank
keep coming back?
I will.
All right. And he, of course, has been state rep for 21 years. It is what you're made, as you said, in Skokie and Morton Grove, in Lincolnwood, in the 49th Ward, the 50th Ward.
Very
so
good.
He knows Chicago, and obviously he knows politics. So the quick answer, will there be a capital plan past the House and the Senate in early 2009?
I don't predict that it would happen early in 2009 because the players have to get in place and start the ball rolling on how we're going to put it together, but I think we will have one in 2009.
Quick, well, the governor wants what he wants in terms of health insurance and money for health insurance. That the legislature essentially has said no, and he's tried to circumvent that. It's in the courts. Who wins? The governor, the legislature, what?
The legislature will win that battle because the governor has not followed his responsibilities under the Constitution, and that's what the lower courts have said already.
Education. Some people say we're spending too much, too little reform. What do you say?
We are not spending too much on education, but we should take a look at where we're spending our dollars. We should provide for more accountability.
More competition?
I'm not for more competition.
Charter schools?
No, I'm not a big fan of charter schools.
You don't like charter schools?
Until charter schools...
How do you have accountability if you don't have competition?
Until charter schools are required to hire teachers who have gone to college and have teaching credentials, I will not be for charter schools.
You don't think somebody could come in with a master's degree, a PhD, know the discipline and teach, but they haven't taken 4 years?